Oh my God, I'm so nervous. Hi, friends. Before I begin, I just want to say I'm Rapi. I'm gay. I'm a Filipino immigrant, and right now in this time and space, I need to declare that every single time I have an opportunity to, especially like it's Pride Month. Um, oh God. Okay, so help me out here. I was asked to talk about like what tech is doing to respond to the current crisis, and I think I wanted to talk about open source movements, but before I could talk about that, I need to tell you more about my journey or how I got here. I think we would understand it more. So I started as 4 years ago. I arrived. Oh, sorry. There you go. 4 years ago, I arrived here in this country as a humanitarian. I was working for the United Nations, and I really believe that politics and humanitarianism were in two opposite poles. I think that humanitarians relieve or alleviate the suffering of people, and politics is not doing that at the moment. And it was very apparent to me. I was a contractor for the United Nations, so I didn't have my health insurance covered. So when I had a stomach flu, it got to me that I have to pay $1,000 for me to just get everything checked, medication, etc. And I had to make a private deal with my doctor to just have $100 a month to pay for that. Because otherwise, I wouldn't be able to pay my rent. My family was still staying with me. And at some point, my stomach kept hurting, and we thought that it was appendicitis. And I was checking out the average cost for that. It was like $33,000. And at that point, I had to decide, okay, if this is in fact appendicitis, I'm gonna buy a $600 ticket back to the Philippines and pay $700 for the operations and endure the 19 hours of pain. I was lucky that it wasn't so, but I was thinking back, if I go back to the Philippines, where it taught me like corruption and the money in politics is so pervasive, that I fully understood that politicians go to rich people for money and sing to the voters, to the poor people for votes. And that was how I saw, that was my worldview of politics. And I was working in the UN day in, day out, and that was around April 2015 when my boyfriend, then husband, who's here, talked to me about this old white dude named Bernie. And what was I say? So this dude is making everything like free healthcare, relieve childhood poverty, and remove the influence of money in politics. And I was like, oh wow, okay. I was going to drop something, but oh wow, okay. And I think I want to learn more about this dude. So as any coder would do, I would go online to Reddit, check him out, and got immersive. And there's this Sanders for President subreddit, and I was like, oh, so there's videos, etc. And I really liked what I heard from this old white dude. And so I tried looking for an event, for events to volunteer. I wanted to meet other supporters. And the volunteer events, apparently, from the framework that they're using, is so scattered and it's slow. Like, for me to look for events, it would have to take me 15 seconds to just load the events near my area. And I was like, telling, okay, I made maps for the UN. I know how to create maps. Maybe I could make something out of it to make it easier, because I'm sure that I'm not the only one experiencing it. So I created a hex map. And it was a very simple map because it was just like early on, April 2015. No one's even thinking about tech right then. But later on, like the events kept on growing. And apparently Bernie's message is catching on. And I decided to make a map, a proper map, and it showed like 55,000 events at any single day. And this had no input from the campaign whatsoever. I just saw that the people, the volunteers who were working with me, is experiencing the same problem I had. So why not set up a weekend, do this in my spare time, and afterwards maybe someone might find use to it. And apparently like tens and thousands of people were able to find that kind of use for it. And at some point the campaign adopted it, and they were able to show 80,000 events in that time. So that whole thing, the map, loads events for like 200 milliseconds. From the 15 seconds to the 200 milliseconds, because it was done outside. And it was just not me, apparently. There were also like 3,000 coders who, by the end of the campaign, were able to create 84 applications for Bernie. And this was done within that 9-month span. Like, it was all volunteer. There was no input from the campaign, or maybe minimum input from the campaign. But it was all volunteer, collaborative, self-organizing. And it really just engaged hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people. So when Bernie ended his campaign, he lost, sad. I thought it should not stop there. It should not stop in that idea of like, we are creating these technologies as volunteers. We're building it in an open source license. And maybe at some point, other campaigns would find use to it. Other people might find use to it. Other volunteer organizers may find use to it. And soon after the elections, it turns out I was right. So Women's March was like the largest march that we've ever seen. They needed help in terms of providing a way for their volunteers to look for buses to go to DC. And because the technology is already there and it's under an open source license, they could just grab it and use it into their purpose. So this is essentially them repurposing the hex map that we did and using it to drive tens and thousands of marchers to find buses to DC. And because of that community of 3,000 volunteers, we were able to build 9 applications in the span of 2 months to help women marchers organize and engage with their people. And that was immense. Like, for one application to be created, you would need to have at least 6 months of time in order for you to do that. And like, what this open source movement or open source organization has provided is for organizations or movements or campaigns such as the Women's March to build in such a way that it's fast, nimble, and easy. We just have to repurpose it. And that's the same when Indivisible was looking for a way to visualize their map, because their map was not working for them. We took their data, repurposed the map that we did for Bernie, and visualized that same map showing 6,000 events. And when the ACLU needed that map as well, we just repurposed it, and it took a week, or sometimes even less. And finally, a really good, I think, example of which is when Theresa May, 5 weeks ago, declared a snap election. Because of our reach in the UK, we were able to translate what we did for the US and apply it for the UK. And as you can see, the momentum map right now looks kind of similar to what Indivisible has been using. So it's not just that as well, right? Like, there are others aside from the map. There's the volunteer toolkit that we used for Bernie, that we used for Movimiento Cosecha, and that we used for the Women's March as well. And the housing application that we used for the climate marchers were used by the women's marchers, were used by the Hillary B&B folks, and was created during the Bernie Sanders campaign. And open source is not new, right? President Obama has been using like Drupal before, and like even the Howard Dean campaign has been using Drupal. But there seems to be like a different way now of organizing technologists because of the new technologies that has been sprouting up, from communications, from decision-making, from collaborative applications. We're leveraging all these applications in order for us to build relationships. And that's what it is all about, right? Like, building constant relationships. And that's what we at Progressive Coders have been doing. We are looking for ways to how can we create that kind of collaborative atmosphere, that culture of trust, culture of respect and love with each other, in order for us to build something amazing. And what that means is we're essentially trying to have constant conversations, constant questioning of, how are you? Of, hey, what have you been up to? How's everything doing? Or what are you really passionate about? In such a way that what we're working on reflects our values, reflects our issues, and not just really pushing something out, but rather pushing something out that we truly believe in. And it's not just coders as well. It's also advertisers, it's also creatives, designers, photographers, data analysts, and they're all in this huge network of volunteers trying to do something, professional volunteers that are trying to do something in their spare time. And the question now for us is, how can we make a framework that is effective, that provides that kind of facilitation of relationships, And how can we leverage those network dynamics that can truly boost the movement or the progressive movement? And for me, I think it's sparse, which I've shown you, like it's so spread out. The 3,000 coders is not just in New York, but also around the world. We were able to provide that service to the UK because we have friends there. But it has to be local as well. We at Progressive Hack Night has created this bi-weekly meetup wherein we just discuss the local issues, wherein we're reaching out the organizers to the organizations in our community and find out what the problem is and have the community solve that for them. And we also have Burst, wherein all of these networks, all of these communicative networks or designer networks can come together in one single day of action in a burst type of way, where we just work together and build something for a movement, for the grassroots. At this one, we were working something for the universal healthcare movement. And I'm so proud to share with you that it's all about, we've created like 90 or 120 assets for the universal healthcare movement, which is amazing. And it all ends up, it all ends up with this idea that these things, relationship building, trust building, communication, collaboration, these are all just constant, continuous exercising and practicing of three basic things for me. It's all about building relationships. It's all about serving the grassroots and constantly making ways of making it fun. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here.